told me his name was Valiant Thor. He grabbed my hand. His hand was skin soft as a lady's or a baby's skin, but it was a grip of a man. And we spent 30 minutes, mostly me asking questions and he giving answers. And he claimed that he was from the inside of the planet that our Bible calls the morning and the evening star, the planet Venus. He said, yeah.
Rapper regrets selling his soul to the devil.
I sold my soul. Ever since I sold my soul, I haven't been happy ever since. The demon asked me, are you sure you want to sacrifice your soul? You sacrifice someone that you love? I said, nah. When you sell your soul, you got to sacrifice someone that you really love. And I sacrificed myself and stuff like that.
What's a conspiracy theory that you 1,000% believe in?
So I believe that food is a drug, or they're doing something to our food to make it more addictive. I mean, it's called the Food and Drug Administration. You ever wonder why they lump those two together? Just saying. So if food is a drug and you're having a hard time losing weight, I believe the reason is because you're trying to treat the habits around working out and eating healthy versus changing your mindset to treat the addiction. So if we treated food like the drug that it is and the addiction that it is, I believe it would have a better success rate of reaching our weight loss goals.
Opinion you have that might piss some people off?
That the whole Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie case is fully made up. They're real people, but they're crisis actors. Nobody was murdered. Nobody died. They are alive. And I know this because Gabby Petito has been linked to the Sandy Hook crisis actor link. Do your research. It's fake. None of this is real. It's a distraction from what they are about to do to us in the real world any minute. Wake up.
The Terminator, take us there, and the Matrix, and just to put this from pen to pad. Now, it's one thing to have the idea, but to take that.
It's very easy. It was a script in a book. The Terminator is the prequels to, or the beginning of the Matrix. Sarah Connor is actually Neo's mother. So JC, John Connor's Jesus Christ, grows up to be Neo, one and the same in the Matrix. The Matrix is in the future. The Terminator is the past. It's time travel, past, present, and future time travel. It's the second coming of the Christ, the evolutions of consciousness, man versus the machine. So the machines, the Terminator machines, hear that a child is going to be born that's going to terminate them in the future when they oppress man. See, it's a man versus the machine. It's God's children versus man's children, which was technology.
So man versus nature.
Exactly.
If you think the moon landing was faked, you just want attention. It took nearly 500,000 people to build the Saturn V rocket and the lunar module. Do you think they all lied until their graves? You don't think one person would have snitched by now? Oh, but like his boots don't match the footprint on the moon. Yeah, it's literally called an overshoe. It was part of the spacesuit. It's really not that hard to understand. But like, why is the flag waving? There's no atmosphere. It doesn't make any sense. Do you think NASA doesn't understand gravity? They installed a metal rod to hold up the flag, but it got jammed and didn't extend all the way. But why aren't there any stars? Like, they're in space, you'd be able to see the stars. Yeah, it's called being on the daylight side of the moon. You know, the side that faces the sun? Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to see anything. If they took the focus off the surface and tried to point it at the stars, this is what it would look like. Do you think anybody wants to see that? But just in case common sense isn't good enough for you, the lunar module is literally still there and people take pictures of it all the time.
Of course we never put a man on the moon. Here's why. Footage of the most important thing mankind ever did at the hands of NASA space nerds was lost. Yes, lost. Look up the Apollo 11 telemetry data recordings, a final report. Basic consumer technology in the 2000s includes Google satellites flying at geosynchronous orbit 22,000 miles from Earth, and we can see what kind of vehicle is parked in our driveway. Compare this to the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter that orbits the moon at 31 miles. One would think we'd clearly be able to see the massive moon buggy or maybe the famous US flag, yet the images from NASA show us dots and assures us that these are vehicles and massive landing modules. Again, 31 miles versus 22,000 miles. Fake moon rocks. Apollo 11's astronauts went on this world tour, and Holland didn't trust NASA either, so they tested their moon rock gift and found out it was petrified wood. Out of 134 moon rocks handed out, only a dozen have known whereabouts. Stanley Kubrick released 2001: A Space Odyssey in 1968. Apollo 11 happened 1 year later in 1969. Of course he filmed both events. Why didn't the Soviets ever go to the moon? They were beating us in every single metric of the space race in the 1960s, but then they just gave up. The Cold War went on for damn near another 30 years, so it's not like they weren't trying to flex on us. Why not just set up a bigger Soviet flag right next to the US flag? They claim we lost the technology to go back to the moon.
The moon in a nanosecond. The problem is we don't have the technology to do that anymore. We used to, but we destroyed that technology, and it's a painful process to build it back again.
That's literally what the excuse is from NASA as to why we can't simply go back to the moon. It makes no sense, because today's phone has 100,000 times the computing power of the computer that got man onto the moon, and today's bazillionaires can't even break out into space. This is the only instance of technological regression in history. It should be cheaper, faster, and easier to get to the moon today than it was 50 years ago. To put it into perspective, the 1960s is when we started using audio cassette tapes. Instead, NASA says we're going to Mars, which is incredibly much further than the moon. Michael Aquino said we never went, and he was the most famous Army intelligence officer in the field of disinformation propaganda of all time. So Isaac, why did they fake it? Well, it's for the greater good of pushing propaganda against the forces of communism. America couldn't lose the race, so we faked it. We couldn't take on the risk of watching American astronauts die in space on live television.
Armstrong was nearly killed by the unpredictable trainer. After ejecting just in time, you can see Armstrong descending to safety.
It was also a Freemasonic ritual symbolizing the alchemical wedding of the masculine phallus Saturn rocket penetrating the female moon goddess. The eagle has landed was coded language for the birth of the alchemical phoenix. In 2001, we had controversies behind the film Donnie Darko, from the 9/11 jet crash with a missing airplane like MH370 to the medicated students from Columbine shooting. But the real hidden message of this film was the occult channeling of knowledge through the demonic bunny Frank. Frank is Donnie's holy guardian angel, just like Aleister Crowley's AWAS. Both dictated the future and channeled information into their receivers. Aleister Crowley's AWAS told him of the new world called the Aeon of Horus, and Frank tells Donnie the world is coming to an end on October 30th, a holiday for the sacrifice to the gods. Some of the knowledge Donnie and Frank bestow upon the audience includes the alchemical theory of destruction as a form of creation.
Flood the house and they tear it to shreds, that destruction is a form of creation. So
cue the 9/11 conspiracies here, and the Gnostic fantasy of evil not really being all that bad. In fact, the science teacher literally says it's a necessary form of evolution for children to embrace the darkness.
And did you stop and think that maybe infants need darkness? That maybe darkness is part of their natural development?
The all-seeing eye appears in Donnie's room, and on the jet engine of the airplane, which also looks like the Eye of Horus, drawing us back to Aleister Crowley's Aeon of Horus. Donnie's sister also says, the prince is led into a world of strange and beautiful magic, which is what the Aeon of Horus is all about, occult magic. Patrick Swayze plays the role of the town guru, who turns out to be the leader of a child abuse ring. Director Richard Kelly shows us how he's plugged into the local doctor and is viewed as a messiah even after his arrest. There's an all-star cast to discuss also. Seth Rogen sexually harassing girls, Jenna Malone is Donnie's Scarlet Woman, Drew Barrymore is the literal Karen who's teaching the kids a lesson of fiction influencing reality, the theme of predictive programming. Donald J. Darko, yes, that's his real name, ends up questioning God and decides that following Christ means he's giving up his free will, so he takes the inverted path of Gnosticism, as indicated by the camera roll at the end, and the hidden symbolism of the owl, aka the goddess of Gnostic wisdom, on the fridge. In conclusion, the film is all about the Great Reset and the new normal, the new age Aleister Crowley told us about, and one we kept hearing about after 9/11 when it triggered the alchemical process globally. Hear all about the Halloween satanic holiday, Donnie's holy guardian angel or demon, and the hidden Gnostic messaging of this cult classic on Conspiracy Theories and Unpopular Culture podcast.
I began to pass out. Then my head hit the wall.
Okay, you guys need to check this out. Artificial wombs.
This is the artificial womb facility. A place where humans could be grown entirely from scratch. The devices you see here are called growth pods. Each growth pod is designed to replicate the same conditions that exist inside the mother's uterus. Growth pods are designed to host human fetuses